Do you struggle with delegation? Have you ever tried to delegate something only to get discouraged, frustrated, and then eventually take that task back and say, well, if it's got to be done right, then I've got to do it myself? Well, I think we've all thought that as entrepreneurs. And there's one critical thing that I've found as I've grown as an entrepreneur and struggled and had failures and successes in delegation. There's one critical thing that I've found that is the single biggest mistake we make that causes us to fail in delegation. I'm going to dive into that challenge and the solve in my 4-step framework to delegate effectively with confidence. All right, y'all, welcome back to the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula, where we really dive in on how to build a business that drives freedom and impact for you and those around you. And one of the key parts of really building a business with freedom and impact is I've been able to grow Carrot.com and other companies over the years well into the 8 figures per year and into the almost $100 million in total revenue over the years. Is you have to learn how to delegate. We've talked about it here on the podcast and on my YouTube channel that you really get stuck at those pain lines as we grow in business. And the pain lines are pretty much 3s and 10s, right? $100,000, $300,000, $1 million, $3 million, $10 million, $30 million and above. And at every pain line, we have to start to learn how to delegate that next right thing. We talked about delegation, the delegation matrix episode just recently, where we kind of break down what are the things you delegate or what are the hires that you make as you grow your business. But now, when we make those hires and delegate those things, how do we make it successful? How do we make sure that we truly drive the outcome that we're looking to drive, and we don't get discouraged and we don't end up taking that task back and thinking that we can't hand those things off with confidence? When that happens, that's when we get stuck at those pain lines. And if you can't delegate effectively, it's going to be insanely hard to grow a business over $300,000 per year and stay there. It's going to be insanely hard to get up to $1 million and over the top of that if we don't delegate effectively. All right, guys, so I'm going to break down what the biggest challenge in delegation is. It's a very simple process that you can follow to ensure you have a real transition of ownership. But it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy because us as entrepreneurs, we by nature want to go tackle the next thing. We by nature bring a person in. We go, cool, awesome, you've got this. I'm going to be over here. If you need any questions, let me know. And then we go try to solve the next problem. That's the very thing that is actually holding you back from succeeding with delegation. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is I got this topic from an Instagram follower that said, hey, Trevor, how do I properly delegate and hand off ownership well? It really seems like I always end up taking those tasks back and I lose confidence in delegation. And so that's what we're really going to dive into. The challenge here, let's start to dive into the mindset shift. And that's something I'm always going to do here on the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula is we're going to dive into what's the mindset shift or strategy shift we need to make first. And then we're going to dive into the tactics that you can go execute. All right. So the mindset shift we have to make here when we're delegating is really the mindset around what is delegation and what is not delegation. I was recently here at a Carrot Camp event that we hold for my company, Carrot.com, twice a year here in the office. Really small event with successful entrepreneurs that are somewhere between $300,000, let's say $12 million a year in revenue. And this person, he said, man, Trevor, I've had the hardest time delegating things in my business. I had a really hard time delegating acquisitions, then really hard time delegating this. And I said, well, Scott, did it look something like this? You hired the person, you probably had a basic process for it that you had made that was kind of based off of some of the work that you did. You had a good meeting with them, you cast some vision, you maybe even showed some of the goals that you have, and here's where we want to go. And then he said, cool, here's the process. Cool, awesome, I'm going to follow you a little bit on it. But if you have any questions, let me know. And then you went off and solved the next problem. And then eventually what happened is they didn't come to you with those questions because there wasn't the guidelines or the rules on how you can partner with them and solve those problems with them and help to transition ownership and information. So then they go, I'm not going to bring Scott these problems or these questions because then he might think that I'm incompetent. So I'm just going to work through these. I'm going to challenge myself through these. Okay. Or maybe they come across problems they don't acknowledge are problems yet. So then Scott's over here. And then after a while, Scott doesn't hear that person bringing back the feedback or that they're having questions or challenges, but then he sees a mistake happen. This challenge comes up, this mistake happens, and he goes, oh my gosh, why did that mistake happen? It shouldn't have happened. So then they fly in. We fly in as the entrepreneur that likes to solve problems after kind of pulling away for a while. We fly in and then we go solve the problem. And then we start to now put them on a quote unquote shorter leash because we, as the entrepreneur, don't have the confidence that they're going to be able to do that task well. And now that employee doesn't have the confidence that they can do it well. So now they come to you for everything. And now you are the de facto problem solver for that person, and they're truly not able to go do their job and own the outcome well. And now you haven't delegated effectively. Okay. What that is abdication. That's not delegation. So the big thing we have to recognize, the big mindset shift here with delegation is, are we truly delegating or are we abdicating? Okay. So what is the actual definition of abdication? Well, I looked it up in the dictionary just a little bit before this. And abdication is a failure to fulfill a responsibility or a duty. Okay, so when we look at one of the famous ways that the word abdicate or abdication has been used over history, it's when a royal abdicates the throne. Okay, I think Queen Elizabeth's husband, I think it was, or brother, it was her brother. He abdicated the throne. Okay, he was the king or was going to be the king, and then he said, you know what? I don't want to step into these responsibilities or this duty. I'm going to step away from this duty that I was actually hired to do, and I'm going to not do that. I'm abdicating. So then someone else had to come in and fill that role. The challenge is that as leaders, we oftentimes abdicate and we don't realize we're doing it. Okay, there's something we hire someone to do, but then we just leave. We leave that responsibility. We leave that duty of truly transitioning ownership well and really bringing that person up and helping them succeed. And then we hope that they're successful over here. And then we call that delegation. Okay, so I want to challenge you. If you're struggling with delegation, you're probably abdicating. Okay, so an example where I've done this well, and I've done a lot of these not well also. But an example where I've done this well is at my podcast with my company, Carrot.com, where originally I wouldn't call it intentional delegation because I had done that podcast for so long. I was the only person that recorded the podcast episodes. I had all the strategy in my mind. I had a connection with the audience, and the audience knew me well. And when you do that thing that you're talented at, and it probably gives you energy, you have a real hard time sometimes thinking that someone else can do it. You have a real hard time thinking that someone else can come in and fill your shoes and do it, even 80% as good as you. And I remember, I think it was when I was going on a trip and I needed to have someone fill in, and Brady on my team, who has a real talent for those things, for hopping on podcasts, for questions, and he really is an amazing interviewer. I brought him on and said, dude, I think you'd be an amazing guest host. Why don't you come on here? And so without intention, I walked through the model I'm going to walk through here in a bit that successfully helped me to delegate the leadership of the Carrot Cast podcast at that time to Brady. So over the course of about 3 to 6 months, I transitioned ownership with confidence to the podcast that I'd done hundreds of episodes in and was the only host of that podcast. And now Brady runs the podcast. It does extremely well. I've got full confidence that the quality is there and that it's actually even better than when I was doing it, so that I can focus on the right next thing to do. And I'm going to walk you through that process of what we did together to hit that. But before we dive into that 4-part model, I want us to also, part of that mindset shift, I want us to define or redefine what success looks like with delegation. What a lot of us do when we're not succeeding with delegation is we feel that success with delegation is the hire. It ends at the hire and it ends with the onboarding, right? I hired the person, I onboarded them, I gave them some tasks, and we have a meeting once a week. That's what we deem as success. I placed the hire. But we need to deem success with delegation as actually transitioning ownership confidently. It's outcome based. Is this outcome happening? And does that person truly feel that they can own the outcome? And that can't happen with just a meeting and handing them a process. Okay. So we have to really redefine what we feel is success with delegation. So if you've ever felt that pain, if you've ever felt the pain where where you haven't delegated effectively and you actually abdicated, it torpedoed your confidence to ever delegate again, and it made you gun shy to go out there and make the next hire, this 4-step process is going to help solve it for you. All right. So I am going to be pulling this something up on my iPad. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm going to verbalize what I'm doing. I'm going to paint the picture for you audibly, but go over to the YouTube channel, Trevor Mauch YouTube channel is Mauch. Look up the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula on there and you'll be able to find this episode on transitioning ownership and delegation. And you're going to see my 4-box here. Okay. So let's dig into this. The first thing that we need to recognize is when we're delegating, it's like I said, it's a transition of ownership. It's not just having someone do a task. And so it goes from you owning the thing. It goes from you owning the thing, you own that task, or you own the outcome, or you own the project, and you've been the one who's always done it before that, to now they own it, or I own to now you own. Right? So that's what we're after. It goes from me owning the thing to now you owning the thing. Not me doing it and now you doing it. Me owning it to you owning it. That's a big distinction. And now to transition ownership well, we have to be able to do a few things. The first thing is, like I said, when we start off with a task, whatever that task is, it could be, doing the Facebook ads, or it could be, updating my calendar, or it could be, leading this call with my team, or leading this call with our customers, or whatever it is, or negotiating a sale, or whatever. We have to define that task. Okay. And so we have to also recognize that you currently are probably owning that task. So it starts off with me owning this task. I own this task. We both recognize I own it right now, right? And now you, or the person I'm delegating to, you shadow me. Okay. So we have to recognize I own the task and you're going to shadow me. That's step one. Okay. Now the next thing is, and I like to do this, I usually like to create a shadow period of time. It could be before someone takes over ownership of my email inbox as my executive assistant. I want them to go through and read emails for a few days, maybe even a week. I want them to see how I reply back to emails. I want them to go look at my playbook of examples of standards of how we reply to them, of the different types of emails that we do, but they're just shadowing things for a little bit of time. Okay. Now you get to decide how long that's going to be. The more stake or the more complex the thing is, maybe the longer period of time you want them to shadow before they start to partner with you on anything. But let's say they're going to shadow you for a few reps or a few dozen reps or maybe a week or two on that activity. Okay. So the next thing now is we're going to move over towards we. Okay. Now we are collaborating on this thing together. Okay. So we do together. Now, what does it mean when we're doing something together? That means, I still own this thing. It's still in the bucket where I am owning it. I haven't transitioned ownership over to you yet. But now, rather than me answering all the emails, if I'm transitioning ownership in my inbox, now I want you as my executive assistant to look in all the emails. And I want you to now type up a draft of the emails on how you would answer that. Save them before you send it. But then once a day or twice a day, we're going to hook up for 10, 15 minutes, and we're going to buzz through all of your drafts. I'm going to coach you. I'm going to make some adjustments. And this is where I want you to hold the process. You take the written process or the video that I created that documented how I do it. And I want you to have it up there with you. And I want you to ask that question of, okay, why did you do that, Trevor? What step happens here? So between the I own and you shadow and the we do together, we have to then move over towards recording a process. Okay. So we need to record a process and document that process. Okay. So we need to record and document that process. So the person you're transitioning ownership to actually has the thing that they can take with them to be successful with it. So they've got that process. You're doing the work together. Every time you coach them on that thing, you want them to ask questions. Why did you do that? And you want to coach them and say, hey, here's something I just recognize it's a gap in the process. Go make the process and update the process here. Okay. So you're working together to make that process rock solid. Now, after they do that 2 or 3 times or 5 times or a week or two, whatever that requirement is for you, then we're going to move on to the next thing is review and refine. Okay, after we've had a chance to really do some of those together, we're going to pull up and have a meeting and say, okay, what are some of the things that we want to update on that process? Where do you still have any questions? Where do you have any lack of confidence? And we're going to review that process together, lock it in and go, cool, yep, we're good to go. Okay, we're transitioning knowledge now, and we gave them a chance to have a real dialogue with us. We want them to tell us where they're seeing challenges. We want them to tell us where there's gaps or catch points, or where there's things that are important to you that you haven't documented yet, because those are all going to come up later if you don't document them and address them now. So now we've got a good process. It's the basis. Now I start to transition that ownership of the process to them. Before I owned it, and now they own the process, and they recognize it and say, hey, Johnny, amazing. This process is now yours. Okay, let's transition ownership of this process to you. Put your name at the top as the owner of it. Now it's your opportunity and your ownership to be able to update that process, dial that in as the standard, as you innovate that process and make it better. Okay, so now they start to shift into owning that thing. And this is where, they do the thing. Okay, they're doing the thing. They don't really fully own it yet. You're still partners, but now I shadow. Okay, so I'm really shadowing them at this point. They're kind of owning the process. They're starting to step into full ownership, but they're really doing the thing. It's their job to answer those emails now, not mine. But now I shadow. It might be once a week, or it might be once a day. We have a chance to go, cool, let's just kind of buzz through some of the emails that you have questions on, or let's buzz through some of the challenges you're having, or spot check some of those emails for a couple of weeks and just see the quality of the reply and make sure you're coaching and correcting in the right way, and you're shadowing. Once you have some confidence that they're nailing it 80% of the time, they're doing it at least 80% as good as I'm doing it. And that might be 2 to 5 times or 2 to 5 reps if it's a project or a sales call. It might be a week or two if it's, emails and things like that, to be able to get through all those situations. But you make that decision. When you've seen them coming and really delivering that result consistently enough, 80% as good as you is kind of my rule, then I think it's ready to move them on into ownership. Okay. So now that's the next step, is we lock in that playbook. Now it's fully locked in, the playbook. So we have a playbook that really says, no, this is our standard way of delivering an amazing outcome. You've got confidence. They have confidence. You've coached them through that process. You've co-created that playbook and that process together. It's been a few weeks, or at least a dozen reps or so, where they've had a chance to work on it. And you have confidence. You've transitioned knowledge. Now you transition ownership. Okay. So this is where they really own it. Okay. They own it now. Okay. They own it. And now you cheer. Okay, they own it and you cheer. Now, what does that mean? They own the outcome. So there might be a metric, there might be an outcome that's written down where you both have decided this is what success looks like for this thing. You've written that down, and you have a chance on a weekly basis now on your one-on-one that you do with them weekly, or it could be your weekly sync meeting, to kind of review that. This is where maybe there's metrics to review. So if it's a sales rep, there's probably certain KPIs or metrics now that you're gonna be managing them and leading them based on the outcomes they're driving. And if the outcomes are kind of going off track, then you can coach them. And if they need to be coached even more deeply because they're really going off track, then that's where you come back in here and say, okay, you still own this, but we're going to come back in here now and let's look at that playbook and let me shadow you and coach you on some of these to get you back over that. So we've both got full confidence that you're fully owning it and you're driving the outcome that we're looking for. Okay. That's really what we're looking for, y'all, is then from there, it's their job to innovate that forward. And then they can start to learn how to delegate even further. So if they own that thing and they're starting to grow in their role and they've innovated that role and they've innovated that process and they've driven the outcomes, you've got confidence in it and their role is growing. Now they go through the same darn process with the person that they're going to delegate it to. So now they can move on to the next step. Okay, they own it. Now they delegate it. You should never have to delegate that again to another person unless, of course, this person leaves and you need to hire someone back in that role. But guys, hopefully this gives you a clear path. How long does this process take? It really depends on you and it depends on the complexity of the thing. But I think you can really hand off ownership over most key tasks in 3 to 6 weeks for mostly everything. Might even be quicker for many of the lower importance things and the lower risk things. But 3 to 6 weeks, I think you can truly transition ownership well when we go through the process, partner with the person all the way through and really nail it. So let me kind of bring this home. In order to really delegate well, guys, first of all, we have to recognize when we're abdicating versus delegating. Okay, we hired somebody, gave them a process, said, good luck. If you need me, I'm here. That's not delegation. That's abdication. That is your failure. That is not the employee's failure. Okay, number 2 is we need to treat it like a partnership. I'm not just trying to offload tasks. I'm your partner in helping you succeed, because when you succeed, we all succeed together. That's a mindset shift. The next thing is you need to really make sure to carve out time. When we're truly delegating something, we need to actually schedule time to make sure that person's successful. It's an investment. And then once they truly step into confident ownership, then you can backfill that time that you've now gained with something that is the next level that you want to really step into. And like I said, this really creates true partners, in which it's way more fun to work with partners than to work with people that just feel like they're being offloaded on. All right, guys. So hopefully this was valuable for you. I want you to put in the comments box. I want you to try this out. I want you to add in the comments box here on YouTube, or hit me up with the DM on Instagram. How does this transform the way you think about delegation? How does this transform how confidently you can go out there and buy back your time? How does this really make you look completely differently at how you can partner with the people on your team to truly drive success, so you can build that business of freedom and make the impact that you want to make? All right, guys, hit subscribe here. And if you're getting any value at all from this podcast or from my YouTube channel, I would appreciate you so darn much if you share this with a friend. First of all, that you know could really benefit from delegating more, that you really know needs to get more time back in their life. And then number 2 is add a review and rating wherever it is. Pop the thumbs up button on YouTube, or give me a rating and review over on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. That helps to amplify our message and get more people exposed to this. We can help them build better businesses that serve people well, and businesses that give you more joy and don't trap you. All right, guys, have an amazing rest of the week. Execute this, transition things better, be a partner to your team members, and we'll see you on the next episode.